Welcome, welcome, folks. It is Tuesday, October the 21st. This is Hurricane Hub Live. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages. Thanks for joining us on 13 News Now Plus. About 5 weeks left of hurricane season, and tonight on HHL, we're talking about a brand new named storm, the 13th of the season, and that is Melissa. And if you're thinking to yourself, yeah, that's a little bit late in the season to get a named storm, not so much. Last year, we had 3 named storms in November. So it can happen right up through the end of the season, which is November 30th, and sometimes it occurs even later than that. But Tropical Storm Melissa has formed in the Caribbean, which of itself is notable. That is a part of the basin we have not seen any activity yet so far this season. So you could say that environment is untapped, and there is plenty of available heat and energy still stored in the Caribbean Sea, and it's very warm, very deep water in that part of the ocean. Now, there will be impacts to populated areas in the Caribbean. We're talking about Jamaica and Haiti, probably even Cuba and over in the Dominican Republic, and it may make its way north into the Bahamas in the foreseeable future. So we'll talk about that forecast track. And then talking about the Eastern Pacific, still some activity out there. At this time, there is no named storms in the Eastern Pacific. Here's a summary of our 2025 season in the Atlantic Basin so far. In the Gulf and Caribbean, it's only been very early on in the season. That was in far western parts of the Gulf in the southern Bay of Campeche. And then we've got Melissa here, the only storm so far to be within the Caribbean. And this part of the basin can give birth to some pretty notable storms. So we'll see what the future holds for Melissa. But a lot of forecast models here are showing some intensification, certainly, over the next 5 to 7 days or so. Here's how it looks now on satellite imagery. Not much of a system. It is combating some pretty significant wind shear coming in from the west. Overall, convection is flaring, but you can see here in the last couple of frames, it's becoming a little bit more scattered and not really consolidating around that core of Melissa right now. 50-mile-per-hour winds, so medium-grade tropical storm right now. Remember, tropical storm is 39 miles per hour, up to around 74 before it becomes a Category 1 hurricane. Gusts up to 65, and right now it's moving at a pretty good clip, off to the west at 15, but it is forecast to slow down and potentially even stall, which is going to lead to a forecasting dilemma of where it goes. Computer models are kind of all over the place, and you'll see those in a minute as well. All right, here's a look at visible satellite imagery. In a close-up view, you can see that the low-level circulation is kind of outrunning the batch of convection that's lagging behind off to the east here. It's because it's moving quickly, and it's also running up against some westerly shear that's dislocating all of that activity on the far eastern side of the storm. So it is lopsided, it's asymmetrical at this time, but eventually it should become vertically stacked as that wind shear backs off a little bit in the coming days as it builds off to the west and eventually northwest. And again, the upper level winds become so weak that it doesn't steer it very well, so it almost stalls out and festers over the same area for quite a while. All right, I want to show you now what's going on in terms of the water vapor imagery. We'll see if this does pop up here, because there is some dry air that is getting pulled in from that westerly shear. It's indicated by the rust and yellow color here. That's currently situated to the west of the center of Melissa right now. But with that westerly shear aloft, it is trying to inject some of that dry air into its overall circulation, kind of help it sputter along a little bit. So we'll see if that does help to kind of keep it a little bit on the weaker side going forward for the next couple of days. But as I mentioned, there is just so much warm water here. Warmest water in the entirety of the Atlantic Basin is right here where Melissa is currently located. Look at these sea surface temperatures. 90, 91, 92 degrees. Remember, you need like 78 or warmer, or 80 degrees or warmer to facilitate tropical development and intensification. Certainly have that here. Plus, where it's going, or where it is and where it's going, the ocean heat content, which is the warm water not only on the skin of the ocean surface, but extending down to 100 meters or more in some locations. Exceptionally deep warm water here, which means, especially as it slows down and eventually stalls out, as it's strengthening, it's going to start to violently mix up the ocean, something called upwelling. And when that happens, that typically tends to replace the warm water on the surface of the ocean with some cooler waters that's pulling up from a depth. When you got very warm waters here, it doesn't do it as quickly. It eventually will, but it doesn't do it as quickly here, so it's got plenty of fuel to work with, even if it does slow down to a virtual stall. How long that stall is yet to be seen here, but of course, if it happens for a prolonged period of time, and eventually we'll run out of some warm water, but that doesn't look to be the case, at least in the short term here. So here is the official track from the National Hurricane Center as of 5 o'clock, but this is the 8 p.m. stats updates here. 50-mile-per-hour winds, gusts to 65. But notice here, this is a 5-day forecast cone, folks, and it barely is moving. Okay, by Sunday afternoon, we're sitting here at a medium-grade Category 1 hurricane at that point in time, as a hurricane, okay, Sunday at 2 p.m., as it's slowly lifting its way to the north, somewhere between or right over western portions of Haiti, or over Jamaica, or over eastern portions of Cuba at this point in time. Now, why is this cone not really looking like a cone, but just a lobe, a circle almost? Because the confidence in the forecast is super low. I mean, look at this. It's a perfect circle, pretty much. You don't usually see that, and this is why. Look at the spaghetti plots here. In the immediate short term, there's maybe some agreement here initially. You got some pretty good convergence on the forecast lines. And then you get some massive divergence here in 1 to 2 days' time. Okay, you've got some of the models that take it off to the west and southwest, some that meander a little farther to the west and then pick it up. And then there are several camps that meander it around in this area and then do get it picked up as we have a trough coming in off the east coast of the U.S. that should act as a weakness to pull this off to the north and get it moving, but that could drag it over Cuba, over Haiti, or even the Dominican Republic. And if that was to happen over the Dominican Republic, some of the highest terrain in the Caribbean, that would introduce some shear and likely disrupt its circulation before it emerges over in the southwest Atlantic and maybe tries to reform or redevelop. But again, we're putting the cart before the horse here. We don't know where exactly it's going to go just yet. And this is even worse. When you put in the GFS and the European ensemble plots, we've got a 3,200-mile spread here. Some take it all the way into the eastern Pacific. Some drag it off to the south and west. A few take it off to the west. Now, I will say any of these model ensembles that go farther to the western Caribbean, as we get into the later parts of this weekend, the upper level dynamics look to be very favorable to facilitate rapid intensification. Now, what do I mean by that? Low wind shear, but also it'll be excellent ventilation because we'll have divergence aloft, an upper level high setting on up, allowing the storm to ventilate much more efficiently. And when we see that in the prognostic images for the models, that usually indicates that it could have a very prolonged period of intensification if it does make it into this part of the Caribbean. But you notice that most of these are clustered, of course, within the cone, and then there's a significant number of ensemble members here that drifted to the east and northeast, over Hispaniola, maybe over Trinidad and Tobago, far southwestern portions or southeastern portions of the Bahamas, and then out into the Atlantic. But again, there's a huge spread here. Now let's compare the American and GFS operational runs, okay? We're going to jump out here a couple days, and you can see already in the short range there is significant differences in its forecast track. We've got the European model here that takes a hurricane, slowly lifting it off to the north and west towards Jamaica. We have the GFS that leans a little bit more to the east and takes it over the enhanced terrain of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Notice at this point, by Friday, it's starting to interact with that terrain and weakening it. Shear is working on the system, disrupting its overall circulation, weakening it. Jumping out a little bit farther, European takes it right over Jamaica here as we get through the weekend and early next week. GFS reemerges this into the southwest Atlantic, and it starts to intensify. It becomes even stronger than it was when it was in the Caribbean, according to the GFS run. Jumping out a little further, we're going to go all the way out to a week from now, so next Tuesday. European here now, after moving over Jamaica, is now over eastern portions of Cuba, moving towards the windward passage between Haiti and far eastern Cuba, and then emerging in the southwest Atlantic. Again, not disrupted. So it's going to likely be a stronger storm at this point. And we've got the GFS. Look at the difference in location between the two models just a week out from now. We've got Bermuda. There's Bermuda right there. So safely passing to the southeast of Bermuda at this point. Again, that could change, certainly. But very big differences in the operational runs of both the European and the American. Now, there are impacts that are going to be felt here over the next couple of days. So we've got watches and warnings that are up. Tropical storm watch up for Jamaica, and far portions of western Haiti are now under a hurricane watch for conditions to deteriorate over the next 48 hours or so. Now, the forecast track is for this to drift up in this general direction here. So anywhere east of that storm center is going to be the biggest impacts, which is why there's a hurricane watch here on the eastern side of the storm. Meanwhile, on the western side, it's just a tropical storm watch for Jamaica. Now, could the storm track shift and bring it a little bit farther off to the west here, putting more of Jamaica on the eastern side of the storm? Certainly. Or it could track even farther off towards the east there and impact more of Haiti, Dominican Republic. That's yet to be seen here. Again, the weak upper-level steering winds are not going to be helpful here. Now, in terms of its wind field, again, keep in mind, so this is the center here, so you're going to have the worst of the storm on the eastern side. Let's play it out in time here. This tracks along with what the National Hurricane Center track looks like, taking it right through the next 5 days. And notice as it starts to gain latitude, that lobe of tropical storm force winds begins to expand as it gains latitude. Initially, not impacting Jamaica, at least on this run, but in the far end of the forecast term through the weekend, we start to get tropical storm force winds out by Kingston. Montego Bay be okay at this point, but you still have a good chunk of western Haiti that's under tropical storm force winds 39 miles per hour or greater, according to this most recent run by that point in time this weekend. Now, rain is going to be a big problem, especially since it's going to be such a slow mover. An immense amount of tropical moisture here, and the European model says there's going to be a lot of areas that pick up over a foot of rain. Look at some of these outputs here. Kingston, 12+ inches. Far western portions of Haiti here, over a foot of rain. Areas of even Dominican Republic up and over a foot of rain. 9 to 12 inches in Montego Bay. So that in and of itself going to cause some major, major problems here in the next couple of days. I want to end here with some good news. As we look far out, today's Tuesday, so we do get the Climate Prediction Center's outlook for the next 2 and 3 weeks. Throughout the end of October, first couple days of November, nothing. And guess what? We jump out to the 5th through the 11th, nothing as well. So Melissa could be the last system we deal with in the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. Could not be, but the outlook doesn't point to any areas of interest over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Eastern Pacific now, one area of interest here. High chance, 70% odds of this developing into a named storm. It's near the Clipperton Islands now, but it is building off towards the west. And doesn't really look like it's going to be that big of a system if it doesn't develop into something. And again, it's moving away from land, so not a problem. Updating the scorecard now, we're up to 13 named storms in the Atlantic Basin. 4 hurricanes, 3 majors, and we'll likely have our 5th hurricane as Melissa's forecast become a Cat 1 this weekend. Eastern Pacific, no changes there recently. 17 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 3 majors. All right, folks, that's the latest out in the tropical Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific. We'll continue to monitor Tropical Storm Melissa for any changes to that forecast track. Remember, we are here every night at 8 p.m. for the latest on the tropics on Hurricane Hub Live. We'll see you back here tomorrow.